Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland. Welcome to all those members of the press and the public who are joining via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and turned off when you have finished speaking. So now we'll quickly go on to agenda item number 1. I'd like to ask member services if there are any apologies for absence. So over to you, Elaine, please.
No apologies, everybody's present.
Thank you for that. Agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes from the meeting of the 26th of June. So we'll do that first. Can I have anybody wants to, Councillor French, have I got a seconder? Councillor Hicks, so could I just have a show of hands for those in favour? So those minutes have been approved and that's unanimous. You'll also see at the agenda item number 14, there is a need to confirm and sign the confidential minutes of the 26th of June. And unless anyone has any comments to make on the confidential minutes, I suggest that we agree them at this point without the need to go into confidential session. So if we're all in agreement, we can agree them now. If anybody's got any comments to make, we'll do them after the live stream. So anybody, you're happy? Councillor French, you're approve? Anybody wants to second that? Councillor Marks, all those in favour of? That's unanimous, thank you. So now we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. There are none. However, agendas 8 and 9 have been withdrawn. So agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn. And can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda item here today. So over to you, Elaine, please.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Elaine. As always, member of Chatteris Town Council, but I take no part in planning matters. I usually leave the room when they're discussed. Item number 7 today, I do know Trevor Edgley. He was a couple of years older than me at school and went to school with his brother, but we had no business dealings and he did live around the corner from me, but I feel that being an adult I can make my own mind up on this one today, so I will be sitting on this one. And also I know Matthew Hall for the same reasons as I declare every month, so he's got an application in today and I'll approach that one in a similar manner.
Councillor Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Yeah, I represent Doddington at FDC level and County Council level for that matter, but take no part in any planning matters discussed at that meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs French.
Thank you. I'm a member of Marchtown Council but take no part. Agenda item 5, I will not take part as I have been involved through complaints through enforcement for many, many years, so I won't take part.
Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, item number 5 on the agenda today, I've been lobbied on, that's the FYI 230376 for F. So I'll do remain impartial on that one, so I will be taking part.
Councillor Mufferdon.
Thank you. I am a member of Wisbech Town Council. I'm also the current mayor of Wisbech. Agenda item number 11 on Elmlow Road. Used to be in my old ward, that was previously, but I will remain impartial and I have not been consulted, and whenever planning happens at Wisbech Town Council, I am not in the room. Thank you.
Councillor Marks.
Thank you. I'm a member of Mainey Parish Council and I also attend Chatteris Town Council, but leave the room on both when planning is discussed. On item 5, the applicant is known to me as through business dealings, so I would not take part in that. And on item number 12, I believe John Mayer may be a member of a drainage board, which I am on. However, I do not socialise and remain open-minded on that application.
Councillor Senetcliffe.
Thank you. I declare that I have an interest in agenda item 7 as the applicant rents land that I own. As such, I'm going to leave the room when this item is being discussed.
Yep, thank you, Elaine. Thank you, members. Now we'll go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited. However, I will be additionally asking if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no proposal is forthcoming, or if that proposal fails, I'll be then looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan. He is the development manager here to present application F/YR23/0376F, agenda item number 5. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full planning application for the change of use of agricultural land to equestrian use and the formation of an access road. It's a part retrospective application, and the site is east of the Walnuts on Flaggrass Hill Road. The actual access to the site is from Creek Fen in March. Initially, just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated in respect to this item. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and the aerial photo. You can see it sits in the open countryside in proximity to a group of buildings and dwellings, which is a little bit detached from the main built form of March. So the application proposes to use the agricultural field for equestrian use and also to create an access track running along the northern boundary of the site. So on the plan on the screen, this is the sort of grey strip running across the drawing. A drain runs to the south of the access track and then down the eastern boundary of the paddock area, or the proposed paddock area. So the actual point of the access onto school grounds, which I believe is the name of the road to the east, has already been created with some hardcore deposited, and then the track is indicated as being 4 metres wide and will be constructed from hardcore. The first 10 metres is shown as being sealed, and that's the sort of hatched area that's shown on the plan there. The property to the west of the site is owned by the applicant. Information submitted with the application indicates that the intention is for land to be leased out. However, this is not material to the consideration of the application. So the photos on the screen show the site and its nature. So photograph number 1 indicates the access into the site which has been created, and that's sort of on the right of the photo. Photo number 2 again shows a sort of another view of that access that's being created, and both photos 1 and 2 show the neighbouring paddocks to the south of the access track. Photograph 3 is standing at that access facing west, sort of towards the main body of the application site, and the ditch is on the left hand side of the photo, so you can just make that out sort of in amongst the vegetation on the left hand side. And then photograph 4 shows what would be the line of the access track heading towards the buildings to the west of the site, and then a view sort of across towards where the paddock area would be, so that the paddock would be sort of in the top left hand side of that photo to orientate members. So to summarise, this is a full application for the change use of agricultural land to equestrian use. The proposed development is not considered to introduce any significant impacts upon the character of the surrounding area, and also not considered to be any detrimental impacts upon residential amenity. There are no technical objections to the application from any of the statutory consultees, and as such it is considered that the application accords with the relevant policies of the Fenland local plan, and the recommendation is therefore to grant planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Shana Jackson. Of course, she's the agent, to make her presentation to the committee. When you're nicely seated, Shana, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this application. I'm here to represent the agent in support of this application. As you've heard from officers, the application is before you with a recommendation of approval. It's for the change of use of agricultural land to equestrian use with the formation of an associated access track. It is a countryside use within a countryside location, which is supported in principle by policy LP3 of the local plan. The application proposes to change the use of the land to enable the stationing of horses for grazing. As part of the development, an access track from Creek Fen Road is proposed. Works to the track have already commenced and the horses are in situ. I must stress that this proposal is not a commercial enterprise and there is no intention for the land to form a livery. The situation is that the landowner rents the land to one person who puts a maximum of 4 to 5 horses on site, and this complies with the ACAS recommendation of 1 horse per 0.5 of an acre. The number of horses accommodated within the site due to its size is restricted by the Animal Welfare Act 2006. The proposal is entirely domestic in scale, and as stated previously, there is no intention for a commercial or business use to take place on site. As such, the movements to and from the land will be limited. The proposal has the support from the local highway authority on this basis. It's understood that there are neighbour concerns with regards to damage to Creek Fen Road. However, this is an adopted highway and this issue would be for the County Council to resolve. As per the committee report, the proposal is an acceptable form of development which complies with policies of the development plan, and I therefore respectfully request that you move the officer recommendation and that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. That's short and sweet. Members, questions to Mrs. Jackson? You know what to do. Put your hands up if you've got any. No, you've got it offered very lightly there. Thank you very much. Members, questions to officers? No burning desire to? No? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect to the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Who's going to be first? Okay, Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, I went down to the site the other day and had a look at it, and all the questions I've got written down here have been answered by the agent. I feel quite happy. I'm going to support this one. Can't see anything wrong with it at all. Very little impact to the area, so that's my opinion on that.
Anybody else at all? Councillor Mifferton, thank you.
Thank you. Just to voice my support as well. I know there were fears that it might be commercialized, but it's obviously not a commercial venture, and the size of the land as well. So I will be supporting this as well. Thank you.
Anybody else at all before I come in? No, I'm just going to reiterate my support for this application. I can't see anything wrong with it. There's only going to be 3 or 4 horses on there, and as long as it isn't a commercial venture and it's let out to one person to do whatever they need to do with the horses, I'm very pleased this is going to come through anyway and be regulated as it probably wasn't last time. So I'm going to support this application. Thank you. So anybody else to come in after me? No, can't see burning desire. Thank you very much. So, right, any questions, officers? Have you got any questions? So I'm looking for a proposal on this then, really. What are you proposing, Councillor Hicks?
I'm proposing we go with officers' recommendations to approve this on the grounds that I mentioned in the pack.
Yeah, okay, have we got a second for this, Councillor Mifferton? So we've got a thing to approval thing to go through with officer recommendation to approve this, proposed by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Mifferton. Can I have a show of hands on that, please? With Councillor French is obviously not voting on this, so that is 5-4. So that application has been approved. Elaine.
Mr. Chairman, I did declare I would not take part.
That's it. I did say that, Councillor French. So, and Councillor Marks as well. So that application's been approved. Thank you. So without further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan again to present application FYR 23/0500F, agenda item number 6, David. So whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So agenda item 6 is a full application to erect 14 dwellings with associated garages, parking and landscaping involving the demolition of existing outbuildings, land north of 43 to 53 High Street, Doddington. Again, just draw members' attention initially to the update report that's been circulated regarding this application. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits adjacent to the built form of Doddington and would be the continuation of a development approved to the north in 2018, which is Juniper Close. As set out in the report, there have been 2 previous applications on this site, both for 16 dwellings, one of which was withdrawn before determination, the other being refused in 2022. This plan on the screen shows the site in the context of the adjacent heritage assets. So the southern boundary of the application site abuts the Doddington Conservation Area, and then also to the west of the site is the Grade 2 listed Doddington Windmill, which is denoted in the sort of goldy browny colour, just as I say, sort of at the just to the left hand side of the T element, shall we call it, of the application site. So the site layout plan is shown here. This illustrates the continuation of the estate road from the north into the site, with the dwellings arranged around this. Surface water attenuation is proposed to the west of the site. The listed windmill is adjacent to this and is shown with the sort of the black circle. And then an area of open space and a further pond is to the east of the access road. So street scene drawings are shown here, illustrating the mix of bungalows proposed as part of the development. So the upper image shows the western side of the estate road, while the lower image shows the eastern side of the estate road. Photographs on screen now show the nature of the site currently. You can see it's a sort of a agricultural sort of meadow area really, and then also how the existing residential development would sort of extend down into the site. And then the final set of photographs again show that sort of relationship, with the lower image showing the listed windmill and obviously its relationship to the application site. So in summary, the previous application for 16 dwellings was refused on 4 grounds: biodiversity, relationships to adjacent properties, lack of a Section 106 agreement and impact on heritage assets. These have been largely overcome with the current application, with the exception of the impact on heritage assets. So the Council's Conservation Officer has recommended the refusal of the application due to the adverse impact upon the setting of the listed building and also the conservation area arising from the further loss of the open setting of these heritage assets and the erosion of their significance and the loss of the sort of understanding those assets in terms of the historic character, the relationship with the historic core of the village and also its relationship to the open countryside beyond. This harm is not considered to be outweighed by the public benefits of the development and would therefore not accord with the guidance contained in the MPPF, and to allow the application would not be consistent with the Council's responsibilities in law to preserve the setting of a listed building and preserve or enhance conservation areas. The application is therefore recommended for refusal as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thanks once again, David. We have one speaker on this application. I would now like to invite Councillor Ruth Houghton of Doddington Parish Council, and indeed she's the chair, to make her presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
That one. Thank you, Chair. I speak to you as a private resident, but also as Chair of Doddington Parish Council. There are a number of reasons why this development should be refused. Doddington is designated as a growth village in the current local plan. Our task was to build 127 additional homes to reach our 15% target. We've already achieved 196. By rights, there should be 3 affordable homes built within this development. Lack of viability once again means that these will not be built. Isn't this just a cop-out for developers? Dirt and noise while buildings takes place. Access to the site through Wood Street is narrow and does not allow 2 vehicles to pass without difficulty, especially when HGVs are involved. The access onto High Street opens onto a puffing crossing where children cross to and from the village school. There are constant parking problems in both Wood Street and High Street. The developer and the health impact assessment speak of this as being perfect for the elderly and downsizing residents. You should be aware that the only way that future residents can access the village centre, with its shops, pubs, churches, hospital, surgery, bus stops, etc., will be by having to walk some 1,500 metres through Juniper Close, along the length of Wood Street and into High Street. There is no other access. The demographic of Doddington already shows an imbalance of elderly people. What we really need is affordable homes to attract and retain young people into our village and to ensure its future. Biodiversity, the latest buzzword. The proposed site is already teeming with wildlife, from muntjac and roe deer to badgers, foxes, including 4 cubs this year, hedgehogs, tawny and barn owls, jays, woodpeckers, buzzards, red kite, not to mention the more common birds. Frogs and toads are here, and a myriad of butterflies, moths and dragonflies. Don't believe me? Come and sit in my garden. There is insufficient evidence to demonstrate that the site or the proposed developer contribution will mitigate for the loss of these. Their intention is to build a wildlife pond. Who will maintain this when it becomes choked with duckweed and green algae and is a nursery for larvae that will become mosquitoes? Anglian Water state that they are concerned that the used water network has not been addressed properly and could pose a risk of flooding and pollution. The site, together with homes at the Larches, Wood Street and in my garden, have experienced serious flooding for 2 years now, something not seen, certainly for the 40-odd years that I've lived here. Climate change? Experts tell us that these weather events will become the norm in the future. The Grade 2 listed windmill is the only remaining artefact left from that period of the village's history. The so-called buffer against the windmill by the new plan includes an attenuation pond. The works needed to dig out this pond, together with the footings of the new houses, will undermine the foundations of the windmill tower. Approval of this application will sever the last link between the conservation area and the windmill and their original setting, looking out into open countryside. Under the terms of my late partner's will, the windmill, together with other buildings and the land that they stand on, will be part of his legacy to form a trust for Doddington Village. Please take this into account when considering the potential use of this site and its possible value to residents as a green space. 106 contributions, again, no attempt has been made to compensate Doddington. I understand that Lattersea Nature Reserve in Whittlesea will benefit from circa £21,000 to help their biodiversity. We take the pain, they take the gain. Our surgery already services circa 13,000 people, and Doddington residents already have to travel to Ramsey, Mainey or Wimbledon to obtain an appointment. Our primary school purports to have capacity at present, but no account has been taken of the additional number of children who will need places when the development at Bevil's Close for 48 homes is built. Doddington still has problems with disposal of sewage, and although there have been remedial works taking place at Coneywood, these barely cover the current problems. Public transport is almost non-existent. So, much more thought needs to be put in before we are asked to take additional housing under the current local plan. Added to Juniper Close, if this is built, this development would amount to a total of 42 houses, something that knowledge of which should have been available when the first phase was before this committee. I hope that my points have been made clearly, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed, very eloquently put. Councillors, any questions? Councillor French.
Mrs. Houghton, you discussed the windmill. What are your plans on that if you're saying it's going to be a legacy? Because looking at it, we went out on site on Sunday, and it certainly looks as if it sorely needs attention. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Miffordin, please, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, I just wanted to ask, when the previous units were constructed, did that have any impact on the windmill at all?
Can you use your microphone, please?
It's a moot point. I'm absolutely convinced that when the houses were built, that there was some form of pile driving. It was denied totally, but all of the glass in the windows of the windmill fell out one night, the people from Larkfleet came and had a look at it and said that they hadn't pile driven and it was nothing to do with that. And the noises that we'd heard when they were actually being built was nothing to do with them. So it's, as I say, it was left like that purely and simply because they wouldn't take ownership of it.
Thank you.
Anyone? Councillor Marks?
Thank you. Drainage. It seems to be a concern, and it seems to be flooding. We all sit here every planning meeting hearing about flooding. The last 2 years, you said you've now had flooding. Do you put that down, or what do you put that down to?
I think it's something to do with the fact that we now have 28 bungalows in place we didn't have before. They're on a site that was always known as being wet beforehand, and I think that truthfully, there's not enough runoff from the concrete that was put down on the building site for it to run off anywhere other than back into the land that it's now encroaching into, which is in the Larches and in Wood Street and in my garden.
Yeah, I'll come in now. Yes, thank you, Councillor Houghton. I think I do remember Councillor Davis coming once at your property when you asked her to come round, and I believe there was some water ingress on your property. Yeah?
Yes, there certainly was. In fact, to such an extent that we've got a Clargester for our sewage, and I had that year to empty it 3 times in order to get rid of the water, whereas normally it would only be emptied once.
Yeah, and although she's not here today, I think I can actually speak for her. I think she actually came round to yours when they were supposedly not piling, but they most certainly, in my view, they were, and saw the glass all in the greenhouse out of the windows. I do believe she's not here to say that, but I'm 99.9% sure that's what happened. So possibly, are you saying, or are you inferring that the building of those bungalows down Juniper had a diverse effect on that mill?
Yes, I firmly believe that.
Okay.
And actually, I still have the glass in our shed,
Okay.
in bins.
So my view is possibly if these houses go ahead and they have to pile them, because obviously it's been suggested it's wet, the ground is wet. And boggy, it'll have to possibly be piled again. Although I'm no engineer, so I can't obviously swear on this, it would have a real adverse effect this time because it's a lot closer, and it probably wouldn't do. It will do the windmill no good at all, and we would lose a Grade 2 listed building. Someone may come along there at some time with a pocket full of money somewhere along the line and think, well, I like this windmill. I think I'll spend the rest 20 years doing this up. So if this falls down, because I do like old buildings, to be fair, I do like going and seeing those. So in my view, we could possibly lose another one of a windmill that we can ill afford to lose. Councillor Senniclough, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Ruth. I have a question about the current use of the land, and it does lend itself to developer interest. So I wonder what it's being used for currently, and whether it's just a case of you obviously don't want development on it, but somebody else is going to come along and somebody else is going to come along. So I just wondered if there were any plans, if Doddington Parish Council have any plans or know of any plans for the use of the land in the future?
Certainly, I think I can speak for both, for myself and for the Parish Council. There are no particular plans for anything to be done with it at the moment. At the moment, it's a great place for growing brambles and grass and nettles and things like that. But the thing that I'm interested in particularly is the fact that the windmill will be left to the village when anything happens to me through my partner's will. And I think that there could be something really useful made from the land that the windmill stands on, attached to the green space that is currently being looked at to build upon, in order to make a really interesting site for the middle of Doddington. It could be turned into a wildlife park for the school children to use, etc. It would lend itself to that extremely well. As I say, it's pie in the sky, but that's where I'd like to see it go, if that helps.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions at all? No, thank you very much for that. Questions to officers? Members? None at all. No? Okay. So, kick off, Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Been to site twice, had a look at this. I still have, obviously, it's been before us previously, I have real concerns regarding flooding still. The windmill, yes, we don't want any heritage damaged. I think personally, from what we've heard today as well, regarding the walkway, 1,500 metres to walk into the village itself, doesn't lend itself particularly well to this application as well. I personally think they've overcrowded the site as well. If the developer came back with fewer houses away from the windmill, maybe I'd have to change my mind. At the present time, I actually think the officers have got this 101% right, and I would go with refusal.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Marks. Councillor French?
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to echo Councillor Marks. This land needs development, but not to that extent. It's going to, if something is not done on there, it's going to be left as another piece of land that it's just brambles and nettles, etc. I'm concerned about the flooding, as you know. I'm always concerned about flooding. I think that this application should be supported for refusal, but I think the applicant should reconsider and put a lesser amount, because it's prime for development, but not at 14.
Okay. As you know, we've got to go with what's on the table, and yeah. So as long as members realise that fact, we're good to go. Councillor Miffordin, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to add, I think the officers have got this right. There's a heritage issue with the land, there's a flooding issue. And also, when I went on a site visit, I noticed that the developer has only put a binder course on the previous development. I mean, I don't know how, I think it was about 4 years ago the previous one was done. If they've not finished that to an acceptable standard now, adoptable standard, what is the guarantee that when they develop this other piece of land, they will bring it to an adoptable standard? I mean, we've seen all around recent developments where they have been left at just the binder course and with ironworks taken out. So I'm concerned that this might be another problem if this goes ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good comment, and you're absolutely right what you say. The access road, but obviously we are where we are. This is a different development, and we can put no weight on that. But obviously your comments are taken into consideration, and quite right, Councillor Miffordin. Thank you. Right, anybody else? We're still in debate. Anybody else at all? No. No. Officers? So we're looking for a proposal on this application, please. Councillor Miffordin?
I propose we go with officers' recommendations to refuse based on the items listed in the notes.
Okay, so Councillor Miffordin. Have we got a seconder? It's Councillor Marks. So we've got a proposal on the table to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Miffordin, seconded by Councillor Marks. Can we have a show of hands on that, please? Those against? Councillor Benny? You're just abstaining, are you? So, Councillor Bennett's abstaining, as is quite rightful to do. So the application has been refused. Thank you. So we'll still carry on. We've only been going about 35 minutes, have we? So we'll still carry on. So I'll now hand over to David once again to present application FYR 230573, agenda item number 7. So David, off you go again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for the change of use of 6 agricultural units to B2 and or B8 use, storage and distribution. The Knightley Elite Company premises on Dean Drove, Chatteris. Initially draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. You can probably make out the site is located at the side of the A142, heading from Chatteris towards Ely. It's a fairly long established site, as you'll see from the planning history indicated within the report, which while described as agricultural is perhaps more sort of industrial in its nature, given it involves the washing, processing, packing of leeks. The wider context for the location of the site is shown here. The application site sort of effectively in the middle of that image. You obviously see the relationship with Chatteris to the northwest. So site plan is shown here. No physical works are proposed to buildings. However, evidence has been supplied as part of the application regarding the vehicle parking turning available within the site. See the various coloured blocks. The vehicular access to the site is also to be reconfigured to address the potential for additional HGV movements, but overall there are no objections on the basis of this information from the development management team at the Highway Authority. So elevations of the buildings are shown here. As indicated, no actual physical changes are proposed to those. And then again, we've got photos showing the nature of the buildings on site, also the front boundary treatment adjacent to the A142. So to summarise, this is an established site which sits outside the built form of Chatteris. There are no technical objections to the application, and the principle of reusing these buildings for commercial purposes is supported. However, the County Council's Transport Assessment Team, who look at strategic sort of highway matters, have raised issues regarding the connectivity of the site to Chatteris, given the limited width of the existing footway alongside the A142. However, within the context of the established use, and given also that the application indicates a reduction in the numbers of people to be employed at the site, it is not considered that it would be reasonable to require any footway enhancements, and consequently it is recommended to grant planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thanks once again, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Keir Petherick. He's the applicant to make his presentation to the committee. When you're nicely seated, you've got 5 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really, I've only come to take any questions more than anything else in case there are any outstanding points. As it's been raised, it's been approved by the Chatteris Town Council. There's been no objections, and the site is in its built form and will continue to exist as a functional area which delivers employment. The other point with it will be changing its use will actually deliver a net gain to the council via the fact it will pay business rates. So that was it really, short but sweet, but I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Thank you for that. Members, any questions at all? Charlie? No, nothing? Oh, that was even shorter, wasn't it?
Even better.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry, sorry? Can't hear you. Okay, that's fine, Okay. So, members, questions to officers, please. No, goodness, officers are getting away with it like today, aren't they? Yeah, so, sorry. It's early yet, yeah. Anyway, we can only hope, can we? So, members, to debate the application. So we'll take Councillor Benny first, then Councillor French. First time, Councillor Benny.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Connor, Councillor Connor. I'm Chatteris Ward Councillor sitting here. I fully support this application. It's an established use of an established business that has served Chatteris for offering employment for many years. and will continue to do so. This is just a simple change of use, and I understand fully why it's here, but I think to spend a lot of time on this today is a waste of our time and officers' time. Unless anybody has any burning desire to debate the finer points of this, I think we should put this one to a vote and get this one approved.
We have to go through the right channels, Councillor Benny. We know you're eager.
Yeah.
So anyone else at all? Councillor French and then Councillor Hicks. So as there is other people.
Thank you. I'm actually surprised this application is actually in front of us. It's an established use. As far as County Council with regard to the footpath, that is a public footpath and bridleway already. It's their responsibility to keep that up. It's not somebody else's responsibility to pick up something that they haven't maintained.
Hey, Councillor French, Councillor Hicks.
First of all, I'd like to kick off and say to Mr. Keir how impressed I was with the neatness and tidiness of the site. It is immaculate. You could literally move everybody in tomorrow with nothing being done. You could literally open up shop tomorrow with, I don't know how many businesses are in there, and it'd be up and running straight away. No work, no messing about. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Anybody else at all? Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, being ward councillor as well for Chatteris, part of Chatteris, I fully support this application. It's a bit sad. I actually know of a business that was trying to move in there 12 months ago and unfortunately had to relocate elsewhere because planning was held up by this process. So there are tenants there ready to go in. Regarding the pathway, I think we need to look at Aerotron, employed circa 200 people, and there's a crossing there with the 141 or the 142, but there's not a pathway. So why are we reflecting on this, which will probably have lesser people working there anyway? Fully support it. Let's get it through as quick as we can, please.
I'd rather remiss if I didn't come in here. We are open for business. We say that on numerous occasions sitting in this. This is what we want. We want people to bring light industry to Fenland to make their aspirations higher. So I'll be fully supporting this, and I just wish we had something like this every week to get our teeth into, actually, to be fair. So that's, I've got to steer where this is going, but before I do, I'm going to bring in, if officers have got anything to say. Oh, sorry, did you want to say
I just want to say I support it as well. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you for that. Anything to say at all? So, looking for a proposer on this. Councillor French?
Move officers' recommendations.
Okay, have we got a second for that? Councillor Hicks? So we've got a proposition to go with officer recommendation by Councillor French, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Can I have a show of hands on that proposition, please? That's unanimous. That application has been approved. Somebody needs to bring in. You're going to, are you? Does anybody want 5 minutes or at all for a cup of coffee, or shall we keep pressing on? Do one more? Is that consensus? Yeah? Okay. For that. Right, as stated previously, agenda items number 8 and 9 have been withdrawn, so I'll hand over to David to represent application FYR 24/0110. It's an RM agenda item number 10. So David, away you go again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, this is a reserved matters application relating to detailed matters of access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, pursuant to an outline planning permission granted for the erection of a single dwelling on the site, which is land north of the Fold in Coates. Just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. You see it sits within a predominantly residential area of Coates. As indicated, outline planning permission was granted in 2021 for a dwelling on the site, with the officer report setting out the issues with how the site could be developed in the future in terms of the position and scale of any development. This followed a previous refusal and appeal decision on the site in 2017. So that 2021 application, the actual application form, indicated that the dwelling would be a bungalow, as did the design and access statement submitted with the application, and the application was considered on that basis, to the extent that an informative was actually included on the decision notice to the effect that the scale needed to be given significant consideration as part of any subsequent reserved matters application. So the proposed site plan is shown here. The dwelling is proposed as shown, with tandem car parking to the side of this. The proximity to the dwelling to the site boundaries is, I think, sort of fairly apparent from this drawing. Elevations are shown here. Whilst the height is kept to a minimum as a result of accommodation being in the roof space, it is still considered that this scale of development on such a limited site will result in adverse impacts on neighbouring properties and also adverse character impacts as well. For completeness, the floor plans of the developments are shown here. And then a proposed street scene drawing is also shown here as well. I think this is perhaps ought to be pointed out that obviously this doesn't necessarily reflect exactly how hard to the front boundary of the site the dwelling would be sited. And then just moving on to photos of the site showing the site and its surroundings. And then just a slightly wider street view photo here showing the site more fully in context. You can see the application site effectively sits behind that timber fence. The elevation of the neighbouring property referenced in the report is evident on the right hand side of the image, and also obviously the proximity of that to the application site. So to summarise, whilst the principle of residential development on the site has been established with that previous grant of outline permission, the detailed scheme for development now needs to be considered. It is considered that the scale of development relative to the size of the plot would result in a visually cramped form of development at odds with the prevailing character in the vicinity. And additionally, the same constraints would also result in the development having an overbearing impact in relation to the neighbouring dwelling, with an unacceptable impact on the amenity of the occupiers of that property as a consequence. It is therefore recommended to refuse the approval of reserved matters as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, thank you once again, David. You've been busy this afternoon. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Shana Jackson once again. Of course, she's the agent, to make her presentation to the committee. Again, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. As you've just heard, outline planning permission for a dwelling on this site is established, and this proposal seeks approval of reserved matters in relation to the construction of a single dwelling. The proposal has been described by the local planning authority as a 2-storey dwelling. However, you will note from the submitted drawings that what is before you is actually a chalet, or a single-storey dwelling with rooms in the roof space. It's pertinent to this case that there was a planning appeal which was determined in 2018. As part of that appeal, the local planning authority provided comments within their statement, and I'd like to quote you their comments, which is set out in paragraph 4.22 of the Council's grounds of appeal, and the comments are as follows. The constraints of the site result in limited options for the location of a proposed dwelling. As such, a single-storey dwelling is not considered able to be reasonably accommodated with sufficient private amenity space or reflective of the large bungalows in this area. So in their grounds of appeal, the local planning authority made it very clear that it did not want a bungalow, and the appeal was dismissed on the grounds that the proposal was for a house. So with this in mind, the only option available to us was to provide a chalet dwelling. We're therefore quite miffed that the scheme before you is with a recommendation of refusal. The dwelling's been carefully designed so that no windows overlook the neighbouring properties, and we've provided sufficient parking and garden space in accordance with the adopted drawings, and the dwelling's been set back from the neighbouring properties. Concerns have been raised by officers that the proposal would result in an overbearing impact on the neighbouring property at number 7. However, I must highlight again that our hands have been somewhat tied in that the Council has confirmed in the previous submission that the proposal could not be a bungalow. We've carefully considered the impact on number 7, and as a result half-hipped the roof in this location where it's closest to the neighbour. This has resulted in a much lower height dwelling in this location, and coupled with the distance to the rear boundary and the 1.8 metre high close boarded fencing on this boundary, we would argue this is sufficient to alleviate concerns with regards to an overbearing impact. It's clearly not an issue for number 7, as they've not objected to the scheme. There are no other objections to the proposal, other than the seemingly subjective issue with regards to there being an overbearing impact. The proposal will be built by a local builder, using a local workforce and local materials, and this would result in a high quality dwelling within a sustainable location, and this should be applauded. In summary, I'd suggest that the proposal is a sustainable form of development, and that the relatively low height of the dwelling, the distance to the boundary and the fencing are all such that there will be no tangible negative impact on the neighbouring dwelling or to the character of the area in general. And I therefore respectfully request that that reserved matters are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Questions at all? Councillor Clough, please.
Hello, Shana. I appreciate that a lot of effort has gone into the design so that you don't really have any windows that are overlooking and the shorter apex part of the building at the rear. However, the height of the building would still overlook the gardens. I've been out to the site and viewed it, and I do feel that there would still be an element of loss of light and traffic and parking pressures. Is there capacity? I don't think there's capacity. It would be on street parking, would it? Or
No, so if you look at the site plan, there are 2 off-street parking spaces which will be provided for the proposal, and that meets the criteria within the local plan. So you can see they're just to the left of the property.
and regarding the loss of light?
So regarding the loss of light, I would say that it's a relatively low height building. It's set back from the neighbouring properties. There's also a 1.8 metre high fence in the way. So I think because it's set back so far, I think the most overshadowing is going to come from the fence, which is already there. So I think it would be difficult to, really enforce that there would be an overshadowing issue from the proposal, given the current situation.
Okay, thank you for answering the questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else at all? No? Can't see no burning desire at all. Everybody's got their hands down. Thank you very much for that. Members, questions to officers, please. No? I'm looking for anybody, really. Officer had a very easy ride this afternoon. I'm looking for someone to, and you're the protagonist there, Councillor French, usually. So, but I'll let you off this time. Okay. So I'm just, if no questions to officers, looking to debate the application. Who wants to kick this off? Councillor French, I knew you couldn't resist.
Thank you. I went on site on Sunday as well to see this. It really is a shame. They got the planning permission, so they got the outline. It's really a shame that they didn't listen to what officers actually said on the decision notice. I believe it's just too large for the site. It will cast shadows on the neighbour, and that is a material consideration. And I certainly wouldn't want someone to come along and stick plunk a house next door to me like that. And as my normal human rights comes in this as well, they're entitled to the enjoyment of their home. If this application is approved, it will take some of that away from them. So I will support the officer's recommendations on this one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor French. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I totally agree with what Councillor French just said. I'm a little confused as to why they feel that they can't still put a bungalow on there. It would just mean less bedrooms. I guess it's something to do with cost. The other thing I really don't like is the 2 parking spaces. That means either one way has got to be reversed in or reversed off the road. I think officers have got this, again, spot on.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Councillor Marks. Anybody else at all? Still in debate? Anybody like to add to it? No, no, debate's closed then. So I'm going to bring officers. Would you like to say anything at all? Nothing. Oh, goodness. Right. So I'm looking for a proposal on that. Councillor French.
Move the officers' recommendations.
Okay, have we got a seconder on that? Councillor Marks. So I've got a proposal to go with officers' recommendation to refuse this, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Marks. Can I have a show of hands on that? Unanimous. Obviously, that application has been refused. Do we need to press on, or should we have 5 minutes? 10 minutes. We're going to have 10 minutes. So it's now, yeah. So can we just get back, I don't know, 2:05, and that'll give you 7 or 8 minutes, won't it? Thank you. Right, thank you members, being back promptly, and we'll start again. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to David Rowan to present application FY/YR24/0366F, agenda item number 11. So David, when you're ready once again, thank you.
Apologies, Chairman, we just seem to have got some technical difficulties. The IT seems to have taken a break as well, so just bear with me a moment.
Thank you very much, members. Now I'll hand over to David Rowan to present application FYR24/0366F, agenda item number 11. David, so you're well refreshed when you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full application to erect two dwellings at 113 Elm Low Road in Wisbech. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits within an established residential part of Wisbech, and Elm Low Road itself has a variety of different house types and sizes as you go sort of up and down it. The site is in flood zone 1 and has an extant planning permission for a single dwelling granted in March last year. So that was a 4-bed dwelling, I believe. And we're now looking at a pair of 3-bed semi-detached properties, which are shown on the site plan now on the screen. You can see they align with the neighbouring properties either side. Car parking is shown to the front of the dwellings, and to the rear are 20-metre plus long rear gardens. Floor plans are shown here. And then we move on to the elevations, which are shown on the upper image, perhaps a little bit on the dark side, but as you can see, a pair of sort of matching semi-detached properties. There is a comparison provided with the scheme approved last year that's got that extant planning permission, which I mentioned previously. As you can see, the overall sort of built mass is not significantly different to the one that was approved previously. In fact, it's actually marginally smaller when the measurements are looked at. So we've got some street view images here with the upper image 1, showing a view of the application site facing east, and then another view, sort of the opposite way, looking back up Elm Low Road, again with the site position denoted by that red arrow. So overall, the site has planning permission for a single dwelling, so the principle of residential development has been accepted. Given the size of the site and the nature of the dwellings proposed, it is not considered that there would be any significant additional visual, character, amenity or highway impacts arising from the development of an additional dwelling on the site, particularly given the mixed nature of development along Elm Low Road. Indeed, the development of a pair of smaller dwellings could be argued to be a more effective use of the site to deliver more of the smaller dwellings identified as being required in the strategic housing assessments. So therefore, the officer recommendation is to grant planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. We have 2 speakers and a written representation on this application. First, I'd like to invite Councillor Steve Tierney. He's a district councillor, to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes when you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. So I presume most of you you've all been out and seen the site, so you'll know the nature of the site. And there's a few things I'd like to challenge. The first is the idea that this development, this planned development, is in keeping with the street scene. It obviously isn't. It's totally different to the other buildings, most of which are lower than this, completely different structure. So that's just wrong. The second problem is that it's clearly overdevelopment. And the reason I say that is if you've been and seen the site, you'll see what a tight squeeze this proposed development would be on that small piece of land. Now, when this was just one building, I was okay with it. Of course, we've got to try and make places to live, and there's nothing wrong with using your spare bit of land to build a house within the law. But to then change the plan to cram 2 where you previously planned 1 is just plain greedy. And it's been done because it was approved the first time, and I think they've decided to try and chance it. And I really think it's important that we send a message, because we've got to try and let people develop where we can and make places for people to live. But we've also got to show that we're fair to people who already live there, that we're not going to cram into every available space the maximum number of dwellings that we can. And that's what's going on here. That's why residents are upset by it. Now, I'm only one of 3 district councillors for the area, but you'll see from your notes that both the other district councillors, Councillor Walwork and Councillor Hoy, have echoed my concerns by email to the committee. And in fact, I spoke to them today and they both told me, tell the committee you speak on behalf of us. So I speak on behalf of all 3 of us when I say we oppose this. We think it's the wrong message to send to be using a small piece of land to cram too big a development in. And I'm also concerned about the potential overlooking that there might be. It's just too much for this bit of land, and I wish we would say no to this so the developer would go back to their 1 dwelling proposal, which was far better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Members, questions to Councillor Tierney, please. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Thank you for this. The road itself, I mean, I went down and had a look at this. It's a fairly busy road, and yet we had one property with a garage, which would obviously have turning to stop vehicles reversing in and out. How busy is that road? Because this in front of us now is, yet again, either reversing in or out onto a highway by the looks of things.
I don't want to overstate it. It's not as busy as the A47, for example, but it is certainly, for a residential road, plenty busy. There's lots of properties down there. There's also businesses down there. There's a lot of reasons why people want to access the road. And you're correct, there are already concerns about how vehicles negotiate the area.
Okay, Councillor Mifferton, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if this is a question, because I know this road very well. It is a one-way, it's a dead-end road, isn't it? And adding more vehicles to that area is going to cause more problems. I do agree. I don't know, it should be debate, shouldn't it? Apologies. Sorry, ignore my question.
Is it a question to Councillor Tierney?
Just, I want him to confirm that it is a dead-end road.
But it is then, that's,
Yeah,
so
thank you.
carry on,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Can I come back on that, Chairman?
Yeah, please.
Certainly can.
Yeah, it absolutely is a dead-end road. It's sealed off, so you can't continue on towards Elm. All the vehicles that go down there have to turn around, and that absolutely is an issue.
That's fine. So you're happy with that now, okay? Anybody else at all for Councillor Tierney before we let him go? No, thank you very much. Members, questions to officers, if you've got any? Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, lost the plot here. Now I'd like to invite Carol Royale, an objector, to make her presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes, thank you. Sorry about that. Nearly missed you out. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. To date, there has been 4 previous planning applications for this plot. All were for one dwelling, which were all approved. The latest being just last year for a 2-storey 4-bed house. The developer purchased the plot with full knowledge of this fact, but then only months later wants to split it to squeeze an extra dwelling in and therefore overdevelop the plot. This would be in total contradiction of the original planning officer and present day officer, who both agreed with one dwelling on the plot. The present planning officer felt it would be an incongruous development that would amount to overdevelopment, resulting in poor quality amenity for the future occupants, contrary to policy LP16 of the Fenland plan, and that the previous permission for a detached 2-storey 4-bed dwelling would be more in keeping with surrounding development as opposed to the current application, to increase the quantum of dwellings on the site. The officer further recommended that the applicant withdraws this application and proceeds with the development of the extant detached dwelling, and that to proceed with the current 2-dwelling proposal would likely be considered unfavourably by officers. However, the same officer has now made a complete U-turn from all this and approved it. We have to ask why. The agent acknowledges that the plot already benefits from planning permission for one dwelling, offering the following as a reason for changing this. The current property market requires more modest-sized family dwellings, but as there is the new Skylark housing estate not half a mile away to the east of Elmlow Road, containing 137 2- to 3-bed family houses, not to mention the proposed Heron Road estate extension, the same distance to the west of Elmlow Road with 200 plus new homes, this reasoning hardly stands up for this small plot which lies between them both. We were all disappointed that Wisbech Town Council approved this application. The councillors were, we believed, going to be advised of our objections, but unfortunately this didn't happen, so they were unaware of this at their meeting. That is why an email was sent to every Wisbech Fenland District Councillor of our objections to make sure they were informed. The existing telegraph pole in the front boundary hedgerow blocks access to the proposed parking spaces. This would have to be moved by BT, but to where? Also, there's been no mention of a large storm drain and cover in the same verge. What happens to that? The road already floods here in heavy downpours. Pictures have been sent to CCC in the past, who come out when informed and clean out the gullies outside 113, 115 and 117, although this has never solved the problem. They are also aware of the storm drain in the grass verge and have traced its direction. As dikes have been filled in on the opposite side of the road, because of the Heron Road estate, there is nowhere for this excess rainwater to go anymore. And as a result, the road in this precise position floods entirely across its width. Removing the hedgerow on the plot's front boundary at the expense of nesting birds, assorted wildlife, hedgehogs, muntjacs, squirrels, etc., would be a detrimental step to take. The other 3 plots have retained and cared for their inherited overgrown hedges, as the agent refers to them, both front and rear, and made this part of the road more aesthetically pleasing, maintaining the grass verges too. Further up and down the road, hedgerows have been ripped out for very similar building reasons. This would be yet another one gone forever. the hedgerow wouldn't have to be removed, the telegraph pole moved, and the storm drain could also remain if the plot only had one dwelling, with a turnaround driveway, as it has always been envisaged and approved to be. Highway concerns have also been voiced by neighbours, increased traffic, no footpaths, etc. But many others are most important to them too. Not one of the neighbours' residents has ever objected to the previous planning applications for a single dwelling on this remaining plot of 4. We were all happy and agreed with the previous applications. This one, however, would not be in keeping with what has been agreed and approved many times before. It also disregards what the 4 plots were originally designed for and how well they would look in the road, per case officer's report. We appreciate and thank you for listening to our objections to this application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Royal. Members' questions to Mrs. Royal, please, if you have any. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. You're very good. Thank you. So now I would like to invite member service to read out a written representation from Nick Seaton. He's the agent. So when you're ready, Elaine, please. Thank you.
The application has been recommended for approval by planning officers, with the Town Council and Highway Authority also supporting the application. It is, however, in front of the Planning Committee due to a number of objections received from residents and councillors. The grounds for these objections include highway safety concerns, lack of support and infrastructure along Elm Low Road, overdevelopment and it being out of character with the surrounding developments. While the traffic generated from 2 number 3-bedroom dwellings may be slightly more than from 1 number 4-bedroom dwelling, the increase would be small, with the county highways having no objections. Smaller, more affordable family homes are required in the area, and this modest increase in density does not undermine or detract from the character and appearance of the area, nor it is out of keeping with the local building characteristics. The need for housing of this size and type is backed up by the latest strategic housing market assessment, which indicates a greater need for 2 and 3-bedroom properties than for 4-bedroom properties within Fenland. There is no significantly defined character to the design of the properties in the area, with a bungalow on one side of the site and a large 2-storey property on the other, whilst opposite is a 1.5-storey dwelling. There is also a mix of detached, semi-detached and terraced housing in close proximity to the site. The mass and area of the proposal remains essentially the same as approved and cannot be considered as crammed or overdeveloped, or a justifiable reason to refuse the application on this basis, with a good standard of occupier amenity being provided for both dwellings. I would therefore ask that the committee follow their own officer's recommendation and improve the application.
Yeah, thank you for reading that, Elaine. So, I'd just now like to invite members to put questions to officers after all that. So have you any? No? Councillor Hicks, just in time.
What remit do you use to assess overdevelopment? How do you make that? Is there a set of rules, or how do you make a decision for overdevelopment?
Oh dear, David. On its own merits, I would have thought, but there we go. Try.
Through you, Chairman, I'll take you back to day 1 of planning school, as it were. Essentially, it's a case-by-case judgment using basically, professional expertise, really, looking at the size of the developments, the size of the site, relationships with surrounding properties. Here, we've assessed the application as not being overdevelopment of the site, that the 2 properties can be accommodated with adequate sort of car parking to serve each property, with adequate rear garden space, and without having any adverse impacts upon the adjacent properties. So that's why the recommendation in front of you is to grant the application.
Okay, do you want to come back on that?
So what you're basically saying is there's a certain element of subjectivity to this. Like one man's meat is another man's poison, so to speak.
Through you, Chairman, yes, I would concur with that to a degree, albeit I think when you're looking at having 10-metre sort of front gardens with providing adequate car parking in there, when you've got 22-metre long rear gardens, it's not into a territory of it's on the cusp of being acceptable or not. These look fairly acceptable in terms of not being overdevelopment certainly in my professional opinion.
Do you want to come back on that, or are you completely satisfied? Okay, so we're still questions to officers. Anybody else got any? No? No, thank you very much. So, members, we're going to debate now. Who wants to kick the debate off, please? Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I looked at this and I've been and had a look, and I was 50-50 whether I thought it was good development, bad development. I have to say, having heard what we've heard now, I'm a little upset the agent couldn't be bothered to turn up and just did a written whatever. So to me, at the present time, I am going the direction of feeling that unfortunately I couldn't vote for this. I have major concern regarding, yet again, vehicles on the front. We had a very good application for one property with a double garage, which would have given turning, so the vehicle would have either come in and gone out. We've now got a situation where, I'm just reading it here, tarmac front drives. We've heard there's flooding, so if there's flooding issues, where's that water going to go from there as well? The whole thing, I think this is almost, and I hate to say it, greed, but putting two properties into there when there could be one very nice property. So unfortunately, I can't support this application, and so that's where I am with it.
Okay. Still in debate? Councillor Senator Clough, please.
Just to say that I concur with Councillor Marks, particularly in light of the fact that, from what I understand, there's a site with 137 homes nearby and another further site with 200 homes. I don't understand why there needs to be 2 homes crammed onto this site.
Right, anybody else at all? Councillor Mifferton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Back to the issue with access and vehicles on the road. As we heard earlier, it is a dead-end street, and I know this road very well because it used to be my ward. It's not a very wide road in some sections. It's a mixture of old cottages towards the bottom and newer, larger developments as well. So I don't believe this particular one is in keeping. The property to the right of it on this side is one single unit, while the other one is a bungalow. Oh, sorry, we go back. Yeah, that's a bungalow to the left, and there's a larger property on the other side. So I think that this particular site is suitable for a single dwelling rather than 2 dwellings. For that reason, looking at the road as well, it's wide in some areas as you enter it from Wisdom Lane, and then where you head towards the A47 at the other end of it. It's wider in certain areas, and in other areas, you cannot, 2 vehicles cannot pass each other without one pulling to the side. So I think because if we have 2 developments there, we're going to have potentially a minimum of, say, around 4 vehicles there. I think it's more suitable for a single dwelling, and there is really flooding issues because when we canvassed this road, when it started to rain, it hadn't rained a lot, and we did encounter flooding. So, yeah, what's going to happen to the storm drain? That is just by that telegraph pole. There's a storm drain there, and it's raised above the ground. So, yeah, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Well, I think we'll sometimes have to take notice of your superior knowledge as being the ex-ward member, Councillor Mifferton. Right, so I think I'll come in there then. Yeah, I think Councillor Marks has summed it all up, really, to be fair. I won't go on and on, but I can't support this application. It's got stamp planning permission for one, and I think that's perhaps where it should be. I think Series 2, I think it is over-intensification of the site, because when we looked at it on site visits, the frontage is not that wide, and you can see by the telegraph pole that probably will have to be moved. As I said, I didn't do any measurements, but it looks to me from that photograph that it might. So at present, I'm sort of sitting on the fence, but I'm inclined to go against officer recommendation to refuse this at the moment. But we shall have to see what anybody else says. Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, again, this is a site that we did visit on Sunday. My concern is the shadowing on the bungalow, if I'm correct. The bungalow has windows on that side. Is that correct?
I will bring you in, David.
Through you, Chairman, my understanding is that those windows are serving non-habitable rooms.
Okay, but it's still going to overshadow. And amenity space, I don't think there's going to be enough amenity space. 3-bedroom homes, they're probably going to have some young kids. They're not going to have much room to play. I just think this is, and I know what David's definition of overdevelopment is, but that is a matter of interpretation. I don't like this application at all.
Anybody at all still in debate? We've done it such a little bit of a time. Anyway, anything else anybody wants to say? No, can't see anything. Thank you. So I'm going to close the debate. Now I'm going to bring in officers. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. So I think, obviously, the general tone of the debate has been somewhat, I think, negative. I think it's maybe fair to say, in terms of members' comments. And I think I'm fully expecting that there will be a proposal to refuse the application, which then kind of brings us to the next stage of the planning process potentially, which is the appeal stage, and how a planning inspector would view this case, I believe. And I think the starting point for them would be that there is an extant planning permission on site for a single dwelling, that and then they would be assessing what additional harm there is over and above that single dwelling. So in terms of impacts on neighbouring properties, as we've indicated previously, the actual built form, the built mass, is not significantly different to that which was approved previously, and therefore there would not be any significant additional impacts over and above the extant scheme in terms of the impact on neighbouring properties. In terms of amenity space, obviously the council has a policy that a third of the plot should be private amenity space. Even for the 2 dwellings, that's more than exceeded. As I indicated earlier, I think it's about 22-metre long rear gardens, which are, I think, more than adequate to serve these 2 dwellings. In terms of the impact on sort of the highway, and in terms of vehicles sort of accessing onto Elm Low Road, again, an inspector will be looking at, well, is there a significant additional impact over and above the plot that's got an extant permission? Yes, that plot had that development had a on-site sort of turning area, but then just looking at Street View now, between Weasenham Lane and this site, there must be at least at least a dozen properties that are also in a situation where they have to reverse onto or off Elm Low Road. And in that context, I think it would be difficult to sustain a refusal reason on highway safety, especially when there's also not an objection from the Highway Authority. So I think, consequently, my advice to the committee would be that if the committee wants to refuse the application, that's within your gift to do so, but any subsequent appeal is going to be somewhat difficult to defend, I believe. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. Any more? Councillor Marks, sorry.
Thank you, David. I heard exactly what you said. I believe 2 wrongs don't make a right, and just because previously we have got people who are turning in and out and reversing on that road, and surely as a committee we have to look at the health and safety of this, and if those have been historic to people doing that, does that not surely move us to the point where we are now, where would we not be impacting the problem? And I would happily sit in front of an inspector and say, you know, this is my concern, and that's my biggest concern for this. We've got a highway there. that we're expecting now cars to reverse in and out of. Whereas previously, on the last application or on the application that's already been given, we have a turning circle. And surely turning circles are far better than people reversing in and out of the road.
It'd be interesting to know, you did mention those 12 properties, it'd be interesting to know how old those properties were and when they had planning permission. Because if it was before 1948, I don't think they needed planning permission, and obviously there wasn't the amount of traffic there. We've already heard from Councillor Tierney that it's a busy road and it's a T-junction at the bottom and there's no through, so those who go down there have generally got to turn around and come back, haven't they, at some previous point. So that'd be an interesting one. Have we got any idea of that, David, at all?
Through you, Chairman, I don't have an exact date, but looking at the nature of the properties, I would be very surprised if these are pre-1948. Pre-1998, yeah. Post-1978, possibly. So I would suggest that these are 1970s, 1980s properties in the main. To come back to Councillor Marx's point, what a council has to be able to demonstrate to an inspector is that there will be significant additional harm. And in my view, given the number of properties that are already in a situation where they're reversing onto or off the highway, the development that we're looking at now would be very difficult to convince an inspector that there is a significant additional harm.
Did you want to come back?
Thank you, David. I understand where you are, but equally, going forward then, as soon as we agree to this, the next person who wants to build along there, we've set a precedent. So then more people doing this. So each time we're setting a precedent. Surely we at some point have to make a stand. We've already said, or you've already said, you believe the properties are the 90s. Well, I wonder if some of these properties have actually been allowed or whether they've just done it by default, because I know of quite a few sort of like housing estates and stuff where people suddenly tarmac the front drives without any coming back to planning or anything else. So my fear is if we let this go through this time, then we're just opening up the floodgates for more people along that road.
Okay. Did you want to come back to that, David, before I bring in Councillor French?
Through you, Chairman, I think we sort of run the risk of kind of going a bit round in circles, and I think we do. Sort of, myself and Councillor Marks may just have to agree to disagree on that particular point. I don't think I can really go over that particular issue in any further.
That's fine.
Detail
No,
Chairman.
absolutely. That's absolutely. Councillor French, have you got something to add to it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I did say earlier, I don't like this application. I think it's my opinion, it's overdevelopment. But having listened to David, and he has, I did say remeasure, etc., and he did state there is enough amenity. I think if we cast our mind back to some applications that, and I'll give you Upwell Road as a prime example, we couldn't defend that. We were told by the officers we could not defend it when we recommended refusal. It was refused and we lost it appeal, and it cost us money. I'm certainly not going against officers' recommendation. I said I didn't like it. I didn't say I was going to recommend refusal, but I don't think we have got an option but to approve this application. It's not a good application, but I believe if it goes to appeal, we will lose.
That was obviously for it wasn't. It was a question for officers, Councillor French, wasn't it? Because that's what it was supposed to be.
We're still in debate.
No, it's a question to officers. Now we close the debate, but never mind. So I'll just obviously respond to that, David.
I think the answer is yes, David.
Through you, Chairman, I agree with Councillor French's question.
Okay.
Is it possible to 2 minutes or 3 minutes to go back in debate again? Is that no? Okay.
We've won the debate now. I'm afraid we can't go backwards, Councillor Hicks. As we might as well debate the first one a bit more as well, might we? Stephen, our legal executive, would like to make a point.
Thank you, Chair. It's also just listening to what David Rowan's comments, that whilst it's not a material planning consideration, there is a risk in these sort of cases if we don't produce the evidence to back up a refusal, there may be an award of costs. So the council has to pay not just its own costs, but also the appellant's costs. So, for example, if you were to refuse on highways grounds without any highways evidence, that will inevitably lead to an award of costs. Thank you.
Councillor Marks, it's question still to officers. I haven't closed it.
It's actually to Stephen.
Absolutely.
Evidence is one thing. Common sense is something I believe is very short supply these days. We all know reversing off a highway or onto a highway can cause problems. And surely we are building those problems more by allowing this to happen. We had an application in front of us which showed a turning circle or a turning before it came on and off the highway. I understand what David's saying, but actually there are times when you need to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. It's a bad application, and we, quite honestly, can you put your name to it? Are we just impacting the problem? And I think that's what, that's where I sit with this. I still think it's a bad application, and I'm sorry, I still can't support it.
Councillor Benny, it's questions to officers, of course, again.
What would the costs be, roughly, in your professional estimation, David, if we lost this?
What you turned it down on.
I think that's a very difficult question to answer, given that it's very dependent upon the actual route which the appeal goes down, what the decision level is, etc., and indeed to some extent how much the appellants kind of throw at it from their side in terms of costs. I think my follow up to that though would be, and again with reference to Stephen's comments earlier from a legal perspective, is that actually cost is not a material planning consideration in terms of the determination of an application.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I'll bring in now. Thank you, Head of Planning. Thank you.
So I've just heard what Stephen and David said. I don't disagree with anything they've said, but one thing I just want to clarify is obviously that, and I'm sure members are aware from reading the report, is that the County Council Highway Authority have raised no objection to this application in relation to highways. So it's not a case of just being able to, we're struggling to evidence it. We would have to actually try and find some evidence that goes completely against the Highway Authority's position if we were to refuse this. Otherwise, we will have no evidence. And I totally understand Councillor Marks' point in relation to common sense, but this is planning, unfortunately, and that's not how it works. We all have feelings, we all have opinions and things, but we need to be able to demonstrate and evidence our reasons for refusal. And unfortunately, I would just highlight again, the County Council, who obviously would normally be the people we would be requesting to support us in relation to an appeal, actually have said this scheme is fine in highways grounds, and it's always a very dangerous stance to take if you go against the statutory consultee, because we would in theory, and I say cost isn't an issue, but if we were going to try and defend this, we would need to try and find an external highways person that was willing to say that there was a substantial, just David highlighted earlier, a substantial harm just from this development from 2 additional properties. And in relation to the fact the other original application had a turning circle, we're not here to choose which scheme we prefer. We're here just to assess the application and take, the previous permission as material consideration, but it's not a case of going, we prefer a turning circle to having cars reverse on. We need to be able to demonstrate evidence. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely right. And as I can come in with a cost there, luckily we don't have many costs, luckily, but obviously it depends on what we turn it down on. How many things we actually turn it down on would probably determine the cost factor of it if we lost it on appeal. We can obviously go against it, but there have to be good reasons. If they take to the inspectorate might say, Fenland District Council Planning Committee are wrong, but not necessarily if there's a good enough argument, there will be costs set aside for that particular application. So, but I think on this one, I think absolutely Councillor Marks is absolutely right what he says. Common sense, it doesn't prevail, and certainly it doesn't prevail so much always in planning either, as in human life. But I do think we probably, as chairman of this committee, on the evidence of what our officers have said and our legal executive said, I think, I would try and steer the committee to approving this, as opposed, because I think there would be costs involved. We would lose the appeal most certainly, and there would be costs involved, which certainly doesn't sit very well with me. So I've just come on from an officer point of view here. I probably shouldn't have said all this, but Councillor French, you went like that, did you? Oh, was it Councillor Benny? Did you want to say something? It's still for officers, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've come in wrong there.
the thing is, costs are not a material planning reason, but they're not the overriding part of a decision-making process. Listening to what's being said around the table, we've got members that are saying that it's not right. Now, if all we're going to do is rubber stamp and not use their discretion, which is the purpose of this committee, there may be costs. The costs are only the cost of the appeal. It's not the cost of the whole application. And sometimes you have to do what you think is right rather than, take all your costs into account. I hear fully what David's saying, but equally, from looking at it, I've got my view, which will obviously show in the way I vote. And I think that, members would probably want to vote against this application, but cost should not be the only reason for going against it. There are reasons for turning this down. If those reasons were worded strongly enough and a good reason put forward, those costs could be minimal. And sometimes you have to take a chance with things. And the feel of the committee is, from what I've heard from sitting here, that maybe this would not be approved. The vote will tell. I hear what we say about the costs, but that's not the be all and end all of this committee.
Most certainly isn't, Councillor Benny, but it's obviously, if we lose the decision as well, it's a double whammy. It will get built, and we will incur costs. But that's up to the committee to decide which way they want to run with this. I'm happy for anything to go, any decision the committee makes, provided that we can justify that. But I'm going to bring in Matt here.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Benny is totally correct. We're not here as committee members to rubber stamp officers' recommendations, but what members are here to do, as in all decision makers in the planning process, is determine application according with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So the starting point always should be, what does our policy say? Our policy does not say you can't reverse off of a site onto the road. Our policy does not say you can't put in an application without and then come back and change it. Those, whether we like it or not, our policies don't say that. So we are looking at the application in front of us. We are able, as decision makers, case law's clear, to give different weight to the different material considerations that we see in front of us. My advice, though, in this instance would be that a material consideration of a lot of weight is Cambridge City Council's Highway Authority response. The weight that we give that should reflect their professional expertise compared to myself as a planning layman's opinion on highways, your members. The weight we give should reflect that. And if we don't do that, it is a dangerous route to take. Councillor Benny's right, and as other people have said, costs shouldn't be a material consideration determination of the application, but the reason for that is we should only be refusing things that have a reasonable success of failure, because we should be starting with our local plan. So the reason it shouldn't be a material consideration is because we shouldn't be taking decisions that should ever go to that direction, whether that's officers, members, etc. It shouldn't be a consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Did you want to come back there, Councillor French? For officers, of course. Then I'm going to wrap this up.
Yeah, I mean, if it's up to the committee what they decide, I certainly won't be supporting a refusal on this one. If it was refused and it goes to appeal, I would be very surprised if we can come up with two reasons to defend this. It's disappointing that highways have not really commented on this. I just don't understand it, but they've obviously seen it's not an issue. It's an old established road. It is a dead end at the bottom. As I say, I don't like the application, but I will be supporting the offer because we cannot, I do not believe, we cannot recommend for refusal on highway issues, and I don't know what other reason you can come up with.
Okay. Again, questions for officers. We're still in that, Councillor Marks. Have you got one after all this?
We see. Okay, away from the car parking, reversing, whatever. The other issue that does seem to have been slightly forgotten is also flooding. I've sort of like looked very quickly for a drainage plan. I have concerns. We've already heard from the lady who spoke regarding there has been flooding. That surely has to be materially taken into consideration as well. as to there was an interpretation of what we actually think the thing looks like. So we're not only just focusing on one thing, which is traffic. We've got three things that were raised, and we seem to have lost sight of the other two. So as a combination of the three, putting that in, and it goes in front of the inspector, I still think, we have a good solid case here to turn this application down.
That's, I don't think they do agree, Charlie. I don't think so. I think that's a backhanded question, but I think one word will do, David.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. So in terms of flooding set out in the report, the site's in flood zone 1. Looking at the Environment Agency flood map, there's nothing on there that indicates that the site is at risk of surface water flooding. Without knowing a little bit more about what the actual sort of flooding issue was, now if it's a case that basically the existing drainage infrastructure in the vicinity is substandard, so the sort of the drain within the road needs to be improved, then there's a requirement there for the statutory undertaking to be doing that now to serve the houses that are there now, and it's not necessarily an issue for that the proposed development would have to address. And I would also flag up that clearly there's an extant planning permission in place for a building on the site of a similar footprint, similar mass to what's proposed now, and to some extent whether that is one house or two houses from a sort of drainage perspective is not really going to have a great deal of make a great deal of difference in that context.
Councillor French, I think.
Very quickly,
last one.
Listening to flooding, as you know, I love flooding. Sitting on 11 drainage boards, but also I sit on the flood flow at Cambridge County Council, and many areas are discussed, and this is one that has never come up since I've been on that, since 2020, I think, when we started having the flows. So I can't even say that you can say there is a flooding issue. There probably is. It probably the drains and dikes that want clearing out. But again, I don't think you could defend if you say refuse this on flooding, because it's not been proven through County Council, and highways again, County Council, they have not objected. We're on a sticky wicket here.
I think we've nearly done this to death, unless I'm just going to quickly look round at anybody, and I think I'm going to bring this to a halt then, and I'm going to look for a proposal. No, you've all had your chances now. Thank you very much. So I'm looking for a proposal on this, please. Okay. Just going to write this down. Right, so we've got a proposal from Councillor French to go with officer's recommendation to approve this application. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Hicks. Can we have a show of hands then on that proposal?
1, 2.
Those against? Those who want to, those against? Are you all abstaining? So let's just get it right. So those who want to abstain, 1. So that's 2 against, 1 abstention.
2 in favour.
No, it's not, is it? It's not 2 abstentions, is it?
I object. Who objects?
No, I object. It's 4 objections. No. Let's just go back to it. Proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Who is in agreement with that proposal? Put your hands up now. So those against? That's the simplest way that I said in the first place. So that has failed. Okay, so we're looking for a new proposal now. So I suppose Councillor Marks is what's your proposal?
I propose we go against officer's recommendation on 3. I know what we've been advised. However, I feel strongly enough I would stand in front of the inspector. I believe on highways there is an issue regarding the new proposal regarding the highways and the dangers to the public on the highways. I believe the flooding issue has not been taken fully into consideration, and also I believe it's out of character for the rest, and it's too much on one small site.
Would you say overdevelopment then?
Yep,
That's the
I would
word
go
you want,
with
that's the word we're
overdevelopment.
looking for.
Yep.
Okay. So have we got a seconder on this?
Councillor Venue, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Right. I've got a problem with the first two. Looking at my policy book, which is what we've been told to look at, we have had here before where things have been looking to be turned down on one single item. And I think this does not meet the policy LP 16D that says the application has to make a positive contribution to the local distinctiveness and character of the area, which I do not feel this application does. I've lost me train of thought here. Responds to and improves the character of the local build environment. I don't think this does. It is totally out of keeping with the other houses and bungalows that are down that street. There is nothing in that street that is as crammed in as this one is. Provides resilience to climate change, doesn't really apply to that. Reinforces local identity and does not adversely impact either in design or scale terms on the street scene. And I think it fails that test. It does not meet the character of the local area. Now, that depends, as we get with sequential tests, whether you take it across the district or whether you take it across the town. But we're looking at this street, we're looking at street scene. And in terms of street scene, there isn't, when we went there, it was myself, Councillor French and Councillor Senate Clough. We went on Sunday and had a look. And we drove to the bottom, came back, found the site, and we even drove back down that site, back down that road, right to the end, turned around and came back. And there is nothing else like that in that street. Now, if there is nothing else there, it is not in keeping with the street scene. There are bungalows and there are nice houses. There's nothing else that is as crammed in as this one is. So I don't think it improves. I think it is detrimental to the street scene. And therefore, according to policy LP 16D, which we have had applications come before us before that have had one reason, LP 16D, that we've had officers' recommendation to turn down. Now, if we've had these before, it's all subjective, which also then means when the inspector looks at it, we've come back with a subjective view, which is not taking a technical view against the application, which therefore couldn't be challenged. But as a committee, we have taken a subjective view, and as local people, which is our duty to do this, we have looked at this and we do not think it meets the criteria of LP 16D. Now that again, as much as I say this many times, it's not that we feel the officers are wrong. I fully understand where the officers are coming from, but this is this difference of opinion that we have as a committee. We have it when it's the other way, where we are overturning a recommendation to approve. In this case, we're using exactly the same policy to recommend for a refusal. And I don't consider that costs come into this. This isn't going to be millions of costs. The cost is only for the actual appeal. They won't get the full planning bit back from it. And sometimes, as councillors, you've got to do what is right. And I think with this one, this is right. There is also, this is going to overlook the windows. As you look at the property to the left, they may not be inhabited rooms. But if that's my bathroom, would I want a brick wall 2 metres away from my bathroom window, so it takes the light out of my bathroom? I would not. There's 2 windows down there. I don't know what they are, but irrespective of what they are, the people who live to the left-hand side of this site should have a right to the light, and that is policy. That is a material planning, and this will overshadow those windows. So I think with this, I think going on highways, it's a very clear-cut technical aspect that we can't defend that. I'm sorry, Charlie, I disagree with you on that one. But I do think on this one, using the policy, as Matt has told us to do, we base this on this. This is a well-constructed argument for turning this down. And this does not meet LP 16D. And we have had many things come to this committee that have had officers' recommendations in one way or another with only one reason. And if this is our reason for turning this down, I feel this is defendable.
because I've changed my mind in the process of planning applications, and this is the second time today, the second time this afternoon on this particular application I've done so. And I thank you, Councillor Benny, for bringing your book with you, because I actually forgot mine, so I'm pleased you did, and I'm pleased you wrote that. So I'm happy with that. We do not want, if we go against officer recommendation, highways need to be, it doesn't need to be a reason. Flooding, in my view, doesn't need to be a reason either. But obviously, Councillor Benny has put LP 16D, and I just feel what he said, without reading the book with him, I feel that fits the criteria perfectly. So I'm going to accept that. As everyone said many times before, costs don't come into it, and this is a well-worked sort of administration mission that we do not really, as a committee, we do not think this is right. So I'm happy with that. So I'm looking for a seconder now. Yeah, you proposed it, didn't you? Charlie, did we get to that?
He proposed it.
Oh, Charlie proposed it. Okay. So, okay.
I was just helping with reasons.
It's a long time, isn't it?
I still think,
okay.
Although, you know, from what we've been told, I still think we should be mentioning both.
No.
Yeah, I agree with one point, but I still think also we are a committee, and you know there is feeling regarding, you know, there is an objective.
Well, I'm proposing including your highways and flooding.
I would like to, but I will take.
No.
The chair is saying no, so.
Well, I'm not the oracle, but as many people think I am, obviously, here, but obviously I'm not. Anyway, so I've got a proposal to go against officer recommended to refuse this application. Councillor Marks is...
Can we clarify the grounds?
Yeah, I'm going to clarify the grounds.
Conflict with the seconder.
Yeah. Okay, so did you want to do this, or do you want me to do it?
What, to go through the reasons?
Yeah.
Well,
to clarify the grounds.
I'm happy to do that if you want.
Yeah, clarify. Do that.
Yeah, the proposal.
Okay, you go again. You do it then, Councillor Marks. Go on against 16D.
To speak this up, as what Councillor Benny has already said. We'll go with what Councillor Benny has proposed.
What Councillor Benny says, and we won't involve highways or flooding. Definitely.
I just, Mr. Chairman, if I come in, I just feel I don't feel there's a highways, a flooding issue on this one. It's flood zone 1, and nor do I feel that there's a highways issue because people can back out their driveway, they could reverse in. We've had these in other places. They're technical things that can be easily disproved, like with mathematics. LP 16 is subjective, which is why we go against LP 16. And I do not feel, and we've had applications come before this committee that have had a recommendation to refuse only on LP 16. So this to me does not meet the criteria for LP 16D. It does not make a positive contribution to the local distinctiveness of the area. There is nothing else down that street that fits what is being proposed here. Take the bit out about the environment in there. Reinforces local identity. It goes against local identity. The local identity is bungalows down there, the houses that are down there. They're detached houses mainly. This isn't the semi-detached squeezed on a plot is not in keeping with this area. This is the subjectiveness of it, and I feel that the committee has looked at this in a subjective way, and therefore this is what we're voting on. It does not adversely impact. Well, if it's different, it will impact either in design or scale terms. Well, the scale is similar to what was there, but I think the design is completely different. And therefore, that does not meet the criteria that's laid here, because there's nothing else in the street scene like it. And the settlement pattern or the landscape character of the area, it doesn't fit in. So that would be my argument, and reason on my argument, my reasons for going against this.
Done that, so that's good. So you've got those down, David, as best you can.
I think so, thank you, Chairman. Just one point to clarify with Councillor Benn in terms of the proposed reasons for refusal. Obviously, picked up about the issues of local identity, character of the area and it not fitting in. You've mentioned the impact on the amenity of the bungalow to the north. Is that forming part of the reasons for refusal that you're proposing?
As well, there are windows there. I didn't go through them to see what
So that's fine. We won't have flooding and we won't have highway issues because there obviously is no objection. Flood zone 1 is in highway, so please don't add those in. So we can go on Councillor Benny's synopsis of what's happened. So what do you think? So we've got we had a proposition to go against offer the recommendation to refuse this application. Councillor Marks did that some 5 or 10 minutes ago. Have we got a seconder on that? Councillor Benny? So that's it. So can we have a show of hands on that proposition? Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Those against? You're abstaining, are you? So we've got 5, 1 and 1 abstention. So the application has been refused. Thank you. Without further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan again to present application FYR 24/0367F, agenda item number 12. So David, once again, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for the change of use of land from agricultural to residential land involving the erection of an annex ancillary to the existing dwelling at Linwood Farm, Linwood Lane in March. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and the aerial photos. It sits within the open countryside to the west of the A141 and is accessed from this public bridleway, approaches the site from this sort of south-southeast. So the application seeks permission to expand the residential land out into the adjacent field to allow an annex to be erected. This is shown on the proposed site plan, which is the right-hand plan. As you can see, the area that's to be taken into the residential area, and then with the annex sited within that. As is evident, the existing dwelling is set within substantial grounds. I believe that the overall grounds are around about 5,000 square metres, and the actual footprint of the dwelling is around about 250 square metres, just for a little bit of context. So the details of the annex are shown here. This is to have 2 bedrooms with ensuite facilities, as well as a kitchen, dining area and lounge. So essentially a 2-bedroom self-contained bungalow. And then in terms of the street scenes, the proposed street scene is shown on the lower image, illustrates the scale of the proposed development relative to the existing dwelling. And it also shows an approximate 13-metre separation between the 2 buildings. So photos 1 and 2 show the current southern boundary of the property and the area which would be sort of taken into the residential area, and that view is taken from the public bridleway to the south. Photo 3 shows the side of the existing dwelling, that boundary on the left hand side there, and then photo 4 shows a view along the front of the dwelling towards the location of the annex. So to summarise, it is considered that the incursion into the open countryside is unacceptable, with an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area. The scale of the annex and its self-contained nature, combined with the separation of the main dwelling, is considered to amount to new residential development in a location where this would not normally be supported. The personal circumstances which have been outlined within the application are not considered to overcome these issues and indeed run somewhat counter to them. As part of the consideration of the application, officers have suggested to the applicant's agent citing a revised annex within the existing domestic land serving the property to allow greater functional and physical linkages and also to remove that issue of encroachment into the open countryside. However, that's not been pursued by the applicant's agent. So the officer recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out within the officer report. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you once again, David. We have two speakers on this application. First, I'd like to invite Councillor Tim Taylor. He's a district councillor to make his presentation to the committee. You have got 5 minutes, Mr. Taylor, Councillor Taylor, when you're ready. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and fellow councillors. And this is obviously what it feels like to sit here this side of the table facing the firing squad. Now, I live in the middle of nowhere. I've been in the rural industry all my life, the same as the applicants have. But I do want to disclose a conflict of interest in this one. I don't believe I have to, but I'm going to because I know the applicant and I know the application quite well. So whether you need to do anything now before I carry on or not, I'm not quite sure. So I'm just going to ask you that question, Mr. Chair, on that one.
What I'll do then, because I can't answer that, I'll bring in Stephen, our legal executive, on that one.
As Councillor Tierney isn't making the decision on this, sorry, Taylor, is not making the decision on this, then I don't think there's any problem with your friendship or otherwise with the applicant.
No, so with that, the answer's clear. Please carry on.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for obvious reasons. So we're talking a 2-bed annex for the retired age of the farming family. Now, farmers are farmers. They live in the rural locations all their life. They've got farming running through their veins. They don't have blood, it is farming. So from the farming committee's point of view, we've got no drainage issues because the site is on its own sewage treatment plants. So we've got no issues with that. But you imagine retiring and having this little annex built, and when you open your curtains in the morning, you're looking out on your open fields that you've built, you've designed, you've created them. You're looking out over your cows feeding and calving, or your sheep grazing and lambing. What better way to retire than the life you have been accustomed to and used to all your life? I had to go and visit a friend in Peterborough the other week, and I couldn't stand it in his house any more than 20 minutes. I had to come away. The noise, I just couldn't cope. And he was saying that when he comes to us, he's exactly the same. We're too quiet. He feels like the area has been evacuated and they forgot to let him out of the system. He's just waiting for the bomb to go off. It's all lives, what we're used to, what we've got used to, and what we know. And we don't know a lot of other lives. So, for me, we've got two choices. It's a farm that is in the middle of nowhere. It's got no public view. No public's going to see it, obviously unless they're walking down the bridleways and what. So, to me, we either sit here and we refuse this application to the people that want to live in that. They've looked at pre-planning by building wanting a second bedroom, which is potentially for a living carer coming years to come. So do we refuse that and go, thank you, you're retired, you can now toddle off somewhere and live somewhere that you've possibly never been used to with various noises? Or do we sit here and say, you've worked all your life on farm, you've employed local people, you've supported local communities, you've fed the nation, go away and have a happy, long retirement, looking out of your little annex onto land and the farms and the industries what you've created. You can still feel part of the countryside and still feel part of that farm. Have a wonderful retirement and thank you for everything. The family's still going to live in the main house. It's only 10, 15 yards away. But if you're in that annex that's not connected to the main house, you've got that feeling of independence. You're not tied to the main house, but you're close enough to shout for help if you need it in time to come. Thank you very much, guys. I'd really like to see the farming committee and the planning committee, in my opinion, this is the sort of project we should be working together on across the whole of Fenland.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any questions, members, for Councillor Taylor? No, thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to invite Matthew Hall, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You've also got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Our understanding with this proposal for an annex is the principle is actually acceptable, but the position and the scale are of concern. We have submitted some private medical evidence, which members will have seen, to show that this is for a family member. And we've just heard for future generations. It is a 2-bedroom annex. Second bedroom would be as and when required for a living carer, and we've also designed it all at one level. And when you look at the design, you know, I think it's quite reasonable in my opinion. Looking at the actual maps that are on the screen, one key point with this application, it's about 450 metres from March Bypass A141. It can't be seen from the highway. The annex has been positioned at the side of the existing property. Now, we've looked at positioning it in other places. So if we'd have positioned that to the northeast, within the curtilage of this property, it would have been further away from the main residence. And you could say it could block their view. And that residence has been there about 30 years. If we'd have positioned it to the southwest, it would have blocked all their view of their own farmland. And again, it would have probably been further away from the main residence. We can't position it to the northwest, as there's major farm buildings, there's a business there, there's no room to position it that side. So we have looked at the siting of this dwelling. Now these applicants own approximately 800 acres of land split between this site, which is about 270, and the rest at Doddington. This is the section that juts out, I'll take a guess, less than a quarter of an acre of land. The annex does use the same parking and same access as the main residence. The site is ideally located in flood zone 1, and as we've heard, there's no concerns. The applicants at this site have invested in solar panels that produce approximately 330 kilowatts, and this proposed annex would be powered by these because there's no gas here. They've also recently put in 50,000 litre rainwater recycling tanks at this site as well. These are the same applicants who, between March and Chatteris, have just planted 10,000 trees. So, in my opinion, this site is going to be well screened, even more than it is now, with hedging, and that can be agreed with officers if this application is approved. The applicants are fully aware that there will be, if approved, a planning occupancy condition to ensure that this is an annex subservient to the existing property. When you look in the report, there's no technical objections. There's no objections from many persons of the community. We've submitted medical evidence to state its need. The application has the support from March Town Council and also Councillor Taylor. Thank you.
Just before anybody comes in now, I'd just like to just to make you aware of this. I can confirm that the councillors on this planning committee have seen no medical details of the applicant or any of their relations who may or may not live on this site if this gets approved. So we haven't seen anything at all. It's not been disclosed to any members on this planning committee.
If I can go back, Mr. Chairman, we did submit 3 pages of medical evidence. I can give the date. It was sent to the officer. I just assumed that members would see it. I've got it here and I can show when we submit it. But yeah, I understand.
Trying to make that clear, that's not under our consideration at present. Councillor French, you've got a question from Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Well, I do want to ask a question to you before we go on.
Okay, ask it.
Thank you. Now, we've had similar circumstances like this before, but it has actually been in the written report. Obviously, some of the information would be confidential to officers, absolutely, but there should have been something in there. My suggestion on this application should be deferred until the next meeting.
Yeah, well, we'll just see how it goes and see what other councillors have got to say. But you know, it's certainly up for consideration. That I'm sure. Right, is that? Shall we? We'll get back on track. Any questions for Mr. Hall? No. Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, learned councillor over there said the people who would be using this would be overlooking on open fields, but that's not my recollection of it. I can remember distinctly this property being surrounded by trees. Is that not, which one's correct?
The existing property that's there now, it's been there 30 years, is surrounded by trees. I agree. The proposed annex on the right-hand side, if you like, juts out. Yes, I've said we could plant some hedging and trees, but you can see it's all open fields back towards Wimbledon. So the existing property is screened. The annex, we'd want to put some planting round, some hedging, etc. So in my view, it would have some field views. Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Anybody else? Councillor Senator Clough?
Hello. My question concerns the references to the distance. So to pick up on Councillor Hicks's point that if it was in what I've been out to the site, but what I'm trying to picture is the garden in the top right on the map. If we could just go back to the map, the top right section, close to the road, is the garden area, and you said it would be too far from the main residence. If that's a concern, why does it have to be a separate annex and not an annex that's joined onto the property? Because surely there is room for that. There are no buildings directly around the main house.
Thank you. So looking at the map on the right-hand side, to the, if you like, top right-hand corner, the northeast, that's all part of the curtilage to this property. Now, if we were to position it, say there, it's going to be further away from the existing property. We don't really want to put it in the south-facing garden of the existing property because it would block the view. We're about, I think it's Mr. Councillor Taylor said, about 13, 14 metres away from the existing property. Yes, it's not joined. I would say it's ideal where it is positioned rather than joining it to the existing property, which would then look, in my opinion, overly large. The existing property is 2-storey. We want to keep this all at one level for possible future use. You'd have 2-storey element, single-storey step down. That's why we put it here and kept it single-storey. If we were to put it in the front garden, as you say, we're going to be a lot further away from what it is where we've positioned it here.
Thank you. I'm just trying to ascertain if distance is an issue and the annex could be joined onto the house, then either distance is an issue or it's not.
In my opinion here, distance here, we don't want to disrupt the existing curtilage to the existing property. That's why we've shown it just to the side. It's 15 yards, 12, 15 yards from the existing property. We don't really want to disturb the curtilage to the existing property. That's why which is established for 30 years. That's why we've just shown it just to the south. That would be what I would say. Yeah.
So can I conclude that distance isn't the top priority then?
No.
Thank you very much. Anybody else at all? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Hall, I know you know the answer to this one, but no, sorry, let me rephrase that. I assume, seeing as this is an annex, this is for relatives of this site. Would I be correct in that?
Yes. The person where, in my opinion, we did submit medical evidence is one of the applicant's father, 85 years old. We've submitted the evidence that shows the condition is deteriorating. This is 100% for family members.
Absolutely.
If I can. Right. I mean, I don't know either of any of these applicants, but I know of them. But as far as I'm aware, I've never spoken to anybody that is connected in the Mayor family, but you hear of local families. They are a farming family. I could quite happily take that. Now, also, the bit I was coming to, which was the wrong way around, I mean, you know my father's property in York Road. I mean, that had an annex, which was planning permission was granted through Fenland Council for my grandmother to live in, whilst my father lived at 33 York Road. And that was a separate annex, and that worked very, very well until my nan deteriorated to the point where she went into a home. So the fact that it's not connected, to me, does not prove, or it's not necessary to provide a continuity of care. Is this the kind of similar use that is going to be put to that you obviously know my parents' dwelling? Would it be of a similar kind of use in terms of annex?
Yes, it would be, thank you. While we've shown 2 bedrooms, similar to what I said and what Councillor Taylor said, is one is for a living carer. When you look at the layout, both have got, I'll call them en suites, you could call them wet rooms. That's why there's 2 bedrooms for a carer. It is for that use, yes. And it is separate. It's single story. My opinion would have been if we'd have joined it on the side of the existing property, you're going to end up with the existing property. Off the top of my head, the existing property is 12 metres wide. That's without the garage. It's already there, double garage. Then we'd have put this on the side. It would have probably been 25-metre wide property, which there aren't too many of those around in Fenland. To me, it would have been far too big. That's why we've detached it. So, in my opinion, detached annex here for family members, which is clear it is for family members, is ideal, yes.
I think you've answered that quite well. Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, I have to be quite candid how I ask this question. Obviously, it's what's going to happen in the long term for this building. Saying the applicants thought what they're going to do in 15, 20 years' time.
So, I think Councillor Taylor picked up on this. Chap who this is for is 85 at the moment. In years to come, obviously, he won't be here, obviously. The applicants are, I'm taking a guess here, they might take offence, are mid-50s, early mid-50s, who live in the main residence, and they also have children, one who is doing a university degree in agriculture, long-established farming family. I remember the main house being built 30 years ago, so in time when things happen to the elderly gentleman, family members would then move into here out of the main residence, as it's an annex, and then the younger generation, which will slowly be taken on the farm, would obviously be in the main residence.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Yeah, right. I can see the relevance of your comment, your question, and Mr. Hall's comments there, his reply. Anybody else got any more questions before we let Mr. Hall go? No, thank you very much. Members, questions to officers. Councillor French first and Councillor Benny.
Thank you. Having listened to Mr. Hall saying that he had submitted medical evidence, normally when this happens, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's normally in the report, not the confidential stuff. So can I ask David, do you know why it's not in the report?
Through you, Chairman, the personal circumstances is addressed at 10.17 of the officer report, where it indicates that understood that there are personal circumstances involved and required to meet care needs of a family member. Whilst it's acknowledged, it's considered that the annex is of excessive size and scale, which is located outside established curtilage and basically doesn't overcome the harm that is identified as part of the remainder of the report. So, I think in terms of that, obviously, as officers, we've acknowledged the personal circumstances and given weight to that within the consideration of the application. Clearly, if members wish to give different weight to that consideration, and indeed if members wish to actually see that as a confidential sort of paper separately, as you indicated earlier, Councillor French, members can request to defer or resolve to defer the application and a further report can be brought back with that included to the next committee meeting.
Yes, thank you. If that's possible and the committee agree, I would like that.
Okay, we'll see where that runs first. We'll take Councillor Benny next.
Yeah, my questions are very similar to Councillor French's, so I feel it's been answered.
Councillor Hicks then.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the report as it is, to be fair. I think we've got enough information here to make a learning decision, so to speak. So,
okay.
Sorry, Jan.
That's a point for you, Councillor Hicks. Anybody else? I can't see anything at all. Okay, so that's fine. So we're going to debate. Councillor Marks, surprisingly enough.
Okay, thank you. 3-4 years ago, Councillor French, Councillor Benny, yourself and I sat here with various members of the planning committee as it was, and we had an application in front of us of where we had to delay things, and unfortunately it was virtually the same again, an annex for, it was actually our next door neighbour, and it was delayed, and unfortunately the person passed away during the delay of this. So I'm very mindful of waiting for reports to come through and stuff. Personally, farming community, farming family, it's pretty obvious there's going to be generations go through, so it'll be a hand-me-down property. Okay, it sits out into a field. It's an annex. I've had a quick look on my phone to see what the definition of an annex is. It doesn't need to be against a property, and it doesn't give a distance away from a property. And having had an elderly relative live in the garden of ours in a bungalow, where we had the security of opening the curtains every morning and knowing she was up and about because her curtains were already open, I'm sorry, the justification for this, I fully support. This should be going through now. And equally, we're keeping somebody in their own home. There's actually a saving to the community. Whilst the family are prepared to look after an elderly relative, we should support that as a district council. So, you know, as much as I don't want to go against officers' recommendation, this time round, I feel a must.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Still in debate. Anybody? Councillor Benny?
Thank you, Chairman. I totally agree with what Councillor Mark says. Those who know me know I looked after my parents for many years, and I know the strain it puts on a family when you have to go and visit them every night. I would love for my parents to have bought the bungalow next door to me. Wouldn't be joined at my house, but we could cut a hole in the fence, which is what you've got here, and that would have saved me endless hours driving backwards and forwards from their house to mine. Anybody who is prepared to look after their parents, there is not enough of this today. I feel that anyone who is prepared to do this and to look after their family will live longer because they'll receive better care. They will get a better quality of care than being stuffed in a home. I think it's highly commendable that anybody takes this on. Having lived it for many years, I know what this work entails. I think this is the best outcome for any old person to be looked after by family. And to say this is the open countryside, well, all of Chatteris is in the open countryside. We're surrounded by countryside. And as much as I fully understand the elements of the policy, this is the purpose of this committee, to look at things and say, does this bring benefit in some way? Is this a case of where you can't have a policy that fits one size fits all? This is a case where the policy fails the very people who are helping themselves. And this is the purpose of this committee, to look at it and take circumstances in and to give more weight to other areas that maybe the policies don't. I'm sure there's times when officers feel that they can see it's a solid application, but it doesn't meet the policy, and they come up with that reason. And I can fully understand that, and I support the officers in what they do. This needs to be built. We're looking, you know, they own 800 acres of farmland. To own 800 acres of farmland, that is a big farm. And we're going to take a tiny piece of that to build a home for somebody who has been part of this community for years. And I think it would be a travesty if this wasn't passed.
Yeah, and can I? Oh, sorry, I'll come in first. And I think I must remind the committee that time flies, doesn't it? 18 months ago, we did a similar application at Wisbech St Mary, where it came in, and it was. I'm not going to mention the people around this table know, but that was also supported by this committee. So we need to be consistent here, and we applauded, just like Councillor Benny has applauded younger people looking after their old folks or older folks. I think absolutely this needs to be, the planning committee need to be consistent, and I think that I would support this application. But thank you. I'll listen to what anybody else says, and Councillor Hicks is next.
Yeah, I think there's a bigger picture here as well we must consider as well. The fact that this is going to help to protect for years to come that farm. It's going to, so in other words, it's going to be a lot of benefit for a lot of years. I think that's a consideration. Also, the fact that it is actually surrounded by trees. Nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to know it's there.
And of course, there's going to be a tree planting scheme that the agent, Mr. Hall, has said that they're going to put in as well to make it even more private. Is it? Okay. Thank you for that. But obviously, thank you for that. So we're still in debate. Anybody want to add to this debate? I think I'm seeing where it's going, but anybody else want to add to it? No, I'm going to close the debate then. Officers, have you got anything to say, please? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think just a word of caution for the committee in terms of how the application is being considered. Essentially, it's been applied for as an annex, and I'm a bit worried that members are giving certain weight to the need for this as a dwelling in connection with the farm, which is what the application is not for. Just to, I think, to clarify for the committee's benefit, you're determining an application for an annex, not for an agricultural workers dwelling.
Okay. Councillor Benny first, and do I see you in the, then Councillor Marks. Councillor Benny, the floor's yours.
David, if you have concerns like that, would it be possible to put a condition that it could only be used in conjunction with the owners of the farm? Because if what they're telling us is right, that would have no bearing and that would not affect what they are doing, that should alleviate the fact of alleviate your concerns that it could be used for farm workers. Could that be put on as a condition?
Through you, Chairman, ultimately, if the committee's decision is to grant the application, that sort of a condition could be imposed. How realistic that would be, or how effective that would be into the future, is questionable. But certainly, that is an option for the committee. Yeah,
that seems good to me. Councillor Benny, you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if that helps alleviate the officers and puts them in a more happy situation. Happier situation with putting a condition on like that. I mean, it's the same with any condition that's put on. We get told that roads are going to be built up all the time, and we get told by officers that yes, that's as much as we can do, and then it still doesn't happen. You can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but I'm quite happy with the circumstances surrounding this, and if that was a condition, if this is only going to be used for family, then it's no problem putting it on, and I see no reason why. So I think that would alleviate some of the concerns officers may have.
Absolutely. Well, Councillor Marks.
Just coming back to the comment regarding we've got to be careful, mindful of it's a farm. To be fair, if this was an annex somewhere else, say in the middle of Chatteris or whatever, would we still be sitting here debating this? Is it just because it's purely in the rural location it is, why we're sort of sitting here?
Through you, Chairman, clearly a different annex in a different location with a different set of circumstances may get a different recommendation. I don't think I can see a great deal more. Through you, Chairman, no, I didn't say that. What I said was this is an application for an annex. It's not an application for an agricultural workers dwelling, which I think from some of the comments that some members were making, there was kind of getting a little bit of a blurring of the lines as to what the actual application was for and what the material considerations were for.
I think the lines are clear, to be fair now. I think, all the thoughts of other members think it's a farm, cottage or whatever. It's for an older person living close by their relations so they can keep an eye on them. And as Councillor Benny says, if members feel to go forward with this application, we could always put a condition on that it has to be used by family members. So I think that clears that up. But Councillor French, you've got something else to officers?
Well, I'm just looking at the recommendations for refusal 1 and 2 in the open countryside. Well, yes, we have established that it's in the countryside, but it is surrounded by trees. Special circumstances, I think we can overrule what the recommendations are
More questions to officers at all before we look for a proposal? Nope. Thank
We normally do a vote to go with officer's recommendation first.
Yeah, we can do, but
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see where we are. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I was just trying to cut corners a bit. Okay, we'll go back to the. So, have I got a proposer to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application? Okay. So obviously we haven't got a seconder, so that obviously proposal has been failed. Now we'll go back to substantive one. Can I have a proposal, please? A different proposal. Councillor Benny?
Thank you. I'll just add it to the list of my proposals that somebody's keeping tally of. Yes, I'd like to propose we go against officer's recommendation on this one, for the reasons that I think the benefit in terms of having somewhere where you can look after somebody as a family unit. This family is a farming community. It's a big farm. They are not going to be going anywhere. The bungalow is not out of keeping with the farm, and they're doing a very commendable thing. And I feel that that certainly outweighs the harm, if there is any, in building in the open countryside. In this is not on the edge of a town. This is in the middle of their farm. This is not going to be used for anything other than what they are intending to use it for. I am very confident. I would not be supporting if it wasn't. So therefore, I think that the benefits to the farm, to the family, outweigh the detriment of LP3 building in the open countryside. I think there is a need for this within the family, and therefore that's my reasons for going against. And I'm happy for the condition.
I was just going to say the condition. So can we add that condition to it that only be used for family use? Sindai.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. I'm not necessarily sure that the wording will be family member, but it will certainly be to tie the occupancy to the main dwelling.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Can I just also confirm, is any other conditions, are they delegated to officers?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got a proposal, go against officer recommendation. Proposed by Councillor Benny. Have I got a seconder? Councillor French?
Yeah.
So
Me
can
again.
I? Sorry?
Can I just ask David what the other conditions would be?
We can have a look at those conditions. It can be the chairman if you want, or the proposer.
I would imagine there's nothing much
They
that
won't.
you can.
They're usually fair, really. I usually get them, and I don't find any problems with them at all. But if you wish to, sorry.
Through you, Chairman, I think what we'll be looking at is probably details of the materials, probably also details of the boundary treatments, because obviously with the projection out into the field, but I can't think there'd be sort of too much other than that.
I think that's fine. I think we can leave it. I think we can leave it to you. So as I said, just to reiterate, we're going against officer recommendation proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that? So the application has been approved. Thank you, members.